The medium in which we live and breathe and swim is the medium of miracle. And so the tradition taught this discipline, a spiritual discipline, that when you stand in the face of miracle, you say these words, Baruch Atah Adonai. I acknowledge you, God. Eloheinu melech haolam, whose presence fills the universe, and who is manifest to me, who is revealed to me, to whom I'm now conscious and connected in this holy and special and precious moment. But that takes one more piece of you. And that's expressed in a wonderful old little story about a fellow who gives up on life. And he says to himself and he says to his God, I've had enough. I've had enough of the home life and its noise. I've had enough of the work and its dullness. I've had enough of the routine of the village. I've had enough. I've had enough. I've had enough. Rabbeinu Shalom, Master of the world, show me the way to paradise. So God says, you want paradise? Start walking. You'll get there. And the man, he leaves one afternoon and he starts walking and he walks up the road and it gets dark and he's tired and he decides he's going to lie down underneath a tree and rest for a while. And just before he falls asleep, it occurs to him that in the morning he might forget which way up the road he's going. So he looks for something to leave as a marker and he can't find a stone or a stick. And it occurs to him the simplest thing is just leave your shoes by the road, pointing toward paradise. And in the morning, he'll get up, he'll jump in the shoes, and he'll finish the journey. So he leaves the shoes by the road, and he lies beneath the tree, and he falls into a deep and a sweet and a peaceful sleep. And while he's sleeping, something happens. Sometimes, to some of us who are chosen, our shoes get turned around. Whether it's an angel, or whether it's an imp, or whether it's a squirrel, or whether it's just an accident. Shoes in life, that happens all the time. Shoes get turned around. And in the morning, he gets up and he eats a fruit from the tree, and he walks to the road, and he jumps in his shoes, and he starts walking, and unbeknownst to him, he's going back to his village, and half a day's journey, there it is on the next hillside, and his heart beats in his chest, and he says, Master of the world, you've brought me to paradise. It's paradise. And he runs down the glen and he runs up the hill and he enters the village and he sits down. And this was nothing like his village at home. His village at home was full of noise and commotion and conflict. No, this village was filled with life, with children on their way to school and play and grown-ups on their way to work. And he says in his heart, what a beautiful place is paradise. And he watches the whole day, the life of paradise. And as the evening comes, he smells cooking and it occurs to him he's hungry. But where do you go to eat a meal in paradise? And a funny thought occurs to him. It looks a little like my village. Maybe there's a street looks like my street here in paradise. And he goes looking, and wouldn't you know it, where he thought it might be, that's where it was. And then another funny thought, maybe there's a house, looks like my house here in paradise. And he walks up the street, and just where he thought it might be, there it is. And all of a sudden, out of that house comes a woman who looked remarkably like his wife. And shouts his name and says, come in, your soup is getting cold. Soup, he says. They know me in paradise. A place is set for me at the table of paradise. She says, I don't know what you're talking about, but come in, your soup is getting cold. And he walks in this house, and it wasn't like his house at home. This house wasn't crowded and cluttered. This house was full of life and warmth and goodness. And he sat at the table and he sipped the soup. And my God, wasn't it the best soup he had ever tasted in his life? And he jumps up and he throws his arms around that woman and said, you have given me a taste of paradise. She said, have some more soup. And he finishes the soup and he goes up to rest with that beautiful woman, the sweetest rest he's ever had in his life. In the morning he comes down, a breakfast is waiting for him, and his toolbox, and she says, you have to go to work now. And at first he blanches and says, work, and then he remembers even in the Garden of Eden there was work to be done. And he goes to work, but work wasn't like it was before. Here in paradise, work comes with a sense of stewardship and serving and creativity. And at night, after a hard day, he comes home to rest in the arms of that beautiful woman, enjoy another sweet bowl of soup and another quiet night. Do you know that old fool lived out his whole life and no one could convince him that he hadn't made it to paradise? So before you leave this mountain, turn your shoes around.